planning the annual Grenada Day celebrations that's going to take place in August of this year. And unfortunately, that's not even on the radar screen for anybody else. So those are issues up here because both parties have not done even a passable job of engaging the diaspora in the United States. And from where I sit here, the large Canadian community of probably over 60,000 right now, judging by the last census election, the last census data, is not engaged. And that is a missed opportunity. It's a problem for me, simply because all of the Grenada political parties and leaders only come to the United States and in New York City when they need to raise money. That's
They only come when they need money. Is that the assertion that you're making, that's how the political parties, that's how they see the diaspora?
Yes, beyond a shadow of doubt. As I was saying to a number of people a couple of days ago, within the diaspora here, there is tremendous talent, tremendous access, especially with this new administration in City Hall. There's a lot of opportunity. But oftentimes, the political leaders and the entourages come to New York City. They sit down with a couple strong supporters. They have a conversation. They have the cocktails. They drink some drinks, and that's it. They have a limited rally, that is touted as some sort of success in a hall that holds about 400 people. Then they go back home. There is nothing to show about. Now, they don't engage local elected officials. The second most influential political leader in New York City, a city of 8.25 million people, is a guy called Jumaane Williams. He's a public advocate. If the mayor leaves and goes out of town, he's the one that takes over as the mayor.
Well, let me ask you though, Mike. That's seeming, and I'm saying seeming because I'm almost certain if I had Mr. James, Derek James, his portfolio is just not in my head at this time, but he's actually the man in charge of diasporic affairs locally, and he was asserting something quite totally different, that there is vibrancy, there is energy over in the diaspora, but that seeming distance, that disconnect of which you speak, is that because the politicians are not interested in connecting with the diaspora, or is it the folks in New York and in other parts of the diaspora have literally left Grenada up to fend for ourselves? Is that what's happening?
But I don't think that we've left Grenada to fend for itself. As a matter of fact, during COVID, the remittances from Grenadians in North America topped over $125 million, and that's not Michael Roberts' figures. That's from MoneyGram and the other, and I don't remember what's the other one name, that remit money back to Grenada. And I'm talking about Grenadians who every week send back home $300 or more. That's the baseline figure. And that comes from Western Union. That's the other major money transfer folks. So the issue is we have not disengaged from the Grenada community. We Grenadians. I'm a very proud Canadian.
Right.
And there are a lot of us that agonize over what is happening in the country and how the diaspora is treated. This election, and I know you are in election watch, as a political strategist, I have seen two parties that are literally 20th century parties fighting each other in an election in a 21st century environment. They're both backward, right-wing parties that seem to believe that at the end of the day, 30 days out of an election, is when you somehow articulate issues that you weren't articulated for 4.5 years. I think that the voters are very savvy, and if the NNP wins this election, it's not that people love what they're doing, but they're voting, they're holding the nose and vote for the lesser of two evils, or voting for the enemy that they know and one that, and as opposed to the one that they don't know.
Okay, hold it. We hold that thought there, Mike, because you're making some really, really, really strong points. That the main political parties, you're saying that they're obsolete. We're in the 21st century, but some 20th century strategies. We're going to expand on that for a while. Colin Campbell, we've been hearing a lot. We've been hearing the issue of pension. It's become a topical issue. Poultry, consumer rights, that seeming disconnect where the diaspora seem to be the pocket purse of the political parties. They use them just for political expedience. What are you hearing on the ground? What have you been covering in terms of the pulse of the people and the issues that are affecting them? Are they being addressed, Colin Campbell?
Okay. First off, thank you so much for inviting to this program. I want to make a disclaimer. There are certain things that I might say that will definitely offend a lot of people, but don't worry. What I'm about to say is factual. Speaking to people on the ground and people who are, they are not a part of the political, battle that is going on right now. People who are looking in objectively. And basically they're saying that this is all corned beef politics? Corned beef and rum politics. That's what it's been described. Corned beef and rum politics. Right. Now, I want to just step back a bit because I think sometimes we get caught up with the hype and we lose track of what's most important. I've always said that in Grenada, we deal with symptoms of a problem, of a systemic problem, and not the problem or the disease in itself, right? Let's talk about the economy. We talk about the poultry, we talk about let's say cost of living, minimum wage, pension, and all those things. Let's just track back a bit. Now, there's two things. One, there is change that is happening in an economy, and there's transformation. Which one do we want? Do we want change or we want transformation? Change is linear. Change is like see it as a tadpole turning into a frog. That's change. Transformation, which happens with the people, is when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. So which one do we want, Joseph? Just answer me quickly. Which one do you think that Grenada needs right now? Change or transformation?
I would say both.
You'd say both? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, Joseph.
But can you separate them, really?
I like to hear from the panel.
Because change, if you ask me, go ahead, Mike, go ahead.
And I'll also say that progress there is this misconception that progress is one straight line. The progress is sometimes you take 3 steps backwards and 2 steps forward, and it's undulating. Democracy is messy, etc. We understand that, but governments in power are not there to start talking about, the reasons why we didn't do this and so forth. Blame politics is not a solution. Never was, never will be. And I understand as a political strategist that voters vote for people for 3 reasons. They vote because they like you, they vote because you're saying something that they like, and they vote for you because they hate your opponent. So that's the 3 things. None of what I'm saying here are about issues. So in a 30-day electoral cycle, you're not going to be able to convince voters about any issue on both sides of the aisle. What you're going to see is 2 sets of political supporters coming out and supporting their respective party, irrespective of what, because they like the party, they like the leaders. That's it. It's not about, this election is not about issues, it's not about anything. I agree, it's a referendum on Pete Mitchell. And he can wind up in a little bit of a problem.
But why would you say so, Mike? Why would you say so?
I believe Canadians are going to vote not so much for the opposition party, but vote against the party in power.
Interesting. Hold that thought, Dick. I've got a little something welling up inside of me. Milton Coy, what say you? This election cycle is a referendum against the incumbent?
Colin's question is very, very important.
So I appreciate it. Yeah.
So just give me your thoughts on that, and then you can always just chime in on Colin's question. The issue of change, transformation and change. But is this election cycle, would you agree in any way, form or fashion, that this election cycle is a referendum in some form, way, form or fashion against the incumbent?
Well, I think it is important for us to realize that this election cycle is a very, very important one. And all the political organizations who are competing have been telling us that. It's a very, very important one. And I believe that it is important because of the same question that Colin is asking about the issue of transformation or change. And from both sides, from all sides, in fact, we have three main political organizations vying, and they are all talking about transforming what now exists. And we are also talking about change in different directions. Probably, we used to be going in one direction on issues and a particular matter. Now we are saying that let's change direction. So I think it's important for us to understand that this election cycle is very, very important, not just to the political parties, as Richard saying, as Mike saying, sorry, but it's also important for the electorate, because we hearing from time to time on different platforms that the electorate are saying enough is enough. Now, what does that mean? It means then that they want to take some action. So it's very important that we understand what is at stake for both the political organization as well as the electorate. And I believe that we have some things to consider if we are to participate in this process, which is our democratic right.
But let me ask you, Milton, you're saying that there's a cry out there that enough is enough. Where is that cry coming from? Because they would argue, they comment and argue that they've had a clean sweep of the polls for the last two elections. So where is that cry coming from?
Yes. That cry is coming from the electorate. At least it is the electorate that's the most important aspect of this process. The electorate. And I've attended several of those rallies on all sides. I've been following it, and I'm hearing is enough. And I think that those statements mean something. I don't think it's just wishy-washy. I think it means something. And if people are saying that, let's examine why they are saying that. Because as I said, this election campaign is both important for the electorate as well as for the political organization.
Gerard, I see you smiling. We have a political leader who is nearing 80, he's 78. We have a populace where more than 65% of the populace is under the age of 35. So it means in reality that you've had a leader that has been in power, that has been in politics, frontline politics, for all of your life, if you're under the age of 35. Are you hearing what Milton is hearing? That enough is enough? And if so, if you are, what in your estimation is agitating it? Or if you're not, what are you hearing?
For me, I'm hearing some saying such, like enough is enough, but some are still for the incumbent. So it's slightly, because remember, the populace is split between two major parties, because Grenada has been predominantly a two-party state and is split. So one side is saying one and one side is saying another, and then the side that we don't normally look at is the undecided voters. They are more on what Colin would have intimated on what is the difference between change and transformation. The undecided most likely wants transformation rather than change, because change might be too slow, especially heard Mike Roberts speaking about politics in the 22nd century, and it's been delved in the 21st century. And I differ from his opinion that it was a 30-day election cycle. The whole election campaign began since the political leader of the NDC was voted in. That's when the heat started, and it continued. And I would not agree that it was a snap election. People were expecting it. People were expecting it around this time. People were expecting it to be called a snap election since January. We in June. So I would definitely not say it's a snap election.
Wow, interesting. Maybe for the folks in the diaspora, it came across as a snap election because they weren't hearing much. And that's a different conversation, though. We'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue with the conversation as we dissect the issues right here on Election Watch.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
They are the few, the strong, the elite. Grenada, get ready as our sporting gladiators go for gold and glory at the World Championships. Follow every throw, stride, and jump from July 15th to the 24th. Capture the action daily on GBN Television. It's the World Championships. The dream continues.
James is going to win it.
With your new GUT Credit Union Visa debit card, which gives you access to your cash at any Connex or Visa certified ATMs locally and internationally. Make your payments with a tap of your card using the contactless feature and have the freedom to make purchases locally, online, or overseas whenever you travel, anywhere Visa is accepted. Experience the enhanced security fraud protection through the Visa chip technology. If you don't have your new GUT Credit Union Visa International debit card, speak to any one of our representatives today to do more. Your new GUT Credit Union Visa International debit card, a smarter way to access your cash. More smart, more secure.
Thank Thank you. Welcome back to the program, to all the listeners and viewers, to the special edition of Election Watch. This evening, we're looking at it through the eyes of the media practitioners, the writers, the readers. Well, through the writers, those that present the news, they follow the stories. President of the Grenada Media Workers Association, Jerry Joseph, with me in studio. Also, there is Colin Campbell, Milton Coy, and also a political strategist of more than 30 years. He's joining me from North America. Colin, let's get back to where we did not. I want us to delve into it a bit more. You agitated the question: change or transformation? Which do we want? And I want you to really expound on it as to what is the difference. Some may say that one is a function of the other. In order for you to get transformation, there must be change. If there is change, change brings transformation. What's your spin on it, though?
You see, and that's a misconception, right? That if you have change, then transformation automatically happens. No, that's not the case. Let me give you a perfect example, right? Let's say, for instance, one of the two issues that people have lamented about with the public service, right? Low productivity, wastage of resources, right? Let's just say, for instance, you take the structure, meaning the building, and you change that building into a brand new state-of-the-art building. But the people did not transform in their thinking. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to go into this new building with an old mindset of low productivity, and wastage will be the outcome. You see the point that I'm making?
Right.
The people have not been transformed. Am I making sense here?
So how do you get to that point of transformation then?
Right. Transformation happens when the people understand why they should be involved in the economy, why they should understand how the system works, including politics. Transformation happens when people are educated on policy decisions that government is making, and they could hold them accountable. So whichever government is in power, it doesn't matter, as long as the people's minds are transformed. That is what's going to bring that transformation in our economy. And I would argue that.
I am getting the sense that you fought in the argument that we know we're close to that.
The issue of transformation of the education system, for example.
I'm listening.
Oh, yes, sorry. The education system, transformation of it is about redirecting the focus and the emphasis on what you would need for the future so that you can prepare and plan for it. Yeah, it's not the same as continuing to have specific
building roads. Yes, infrastructure. Yes.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, I'm just asking you here the issue about transformation in regards to the education system. Transformation, the education system. I am hearing also the issue of transformation in regards to the economy. Yeah. So there are things, I agree, the mindset have to change. Yeah, we have to look at things from a different perspective, and not just from a narrow perspective, but look at it from the bigger picture. What would we like to see happen now, or rather in 5 years or 10 years from now, based on what we do now? And does it result in change, or does it result in transformation?
Education is transformation. If you educate your people to be independent of the system, then if the system, let's say for instance, right, I was told going to school to work hard and get a good education and I will be out of poverty. I'm yet to see that. And I've followed the rules. I've gotten a good education. I've gotten good jobs, but yet still I cannot afford to buy land. Have I transformed or change has happened?
So that failure, Colin Campbell.
I think that we kind of expect a lot of, I understand the philosophical, aesthetic approach to change and transformation. I understand, I get that. However, when it comes to politics, when it comes to political parties, we cannot ask too much of them. A A political party is simply an organization of like-minded people with a particular who share a common thoughts, common ideology. That's it. Don't ask them to transform anything because they come into the political party with different levels of baggage. And that segues into how they govern. Governments, first and foremost, especially the kind of governments that now exist in the Caribbean, are there only to support and to take care of their base. It's base politics at the best. So if you vote for me, I'm going to give you a job, your family vote for me, etc., etc. You're not going to get transformation there. You're going to get different versions of the same, and that is just hard-nosed politics coming from me. I'm not an expert on how you transform the economy to make it work for everybody, but what I can see that going into an election cycle right now, the idea of a political party is to win elections, nothing more. There's nothing a political party is set up to do except to win elections. And the NNP has proven that time and time again. It is set up to win election. I don't know if the NDC is set up to take out the NNP now and to win election, because that's what a political party is set up ultimately to do.
Interesting.
What I argue is that, Joseph, just very quickly, I won't prolong this, but what I argue is that why is it so important as to who win the election if the system is the same? That's the point that I'm making. What sort of change could you make if the system, foundational system, remains the same? That's all I'm saying. But anyway. But
then, Gerard, you'd agree. We then find ourselves in a social, a political, and economic quagmire, because the hope is that that's why I keep going with making the argument that one should be a function of the other. That when we make the issue of changing our political leaders, it should be because it's a cognizant, we're conscious enough that this is where we want to go. But very often, Gerard, that decision there seems to be a divorce between the two.
Joseph, you have to remember, and that's why there's a difference between change and transformation. The government, the political parties, let me clarify this. The political parties change, the government does not. The government is not run by the political parties, they are run by the permanent secretaries. They have the major power. They sign on to the policies. It's not the political parties.
So why do we make them permanent secretaries? Get rid of them.
Well, that's how it comes back to what Colin is saying. That's how the structure is. Unless the structure transforms, not changes, because there have been changes. There have been changes in the education system. They have adapted other things, but there has not been any transformation within the education system. We learn the same things. Maybe it has changed. The students now may be learning something different, but in terms of financial awareness, in terms of how to start up a business, how to transform your lives, you don't learn that in schools. In terms of, okay, a lot of young people right now might not even know who is T.A. Marisho.
Right.
The regional leaders, all they do is talk about change, but they don't transform. Regional integration is in its 49th year. Mm-hmm. In the recent meeting in March, they spoke about CSME again, implementation. Yeah, they're changing.
So, gentlemen, is this a deliberate ploy by our local, regional leaders to keep us Milton coy? Because I would agree with you. In order to change the status quo, something has to give. You have to change, agitate. There must be a paradigm shift. Are they opting now to leave us in ignorance for the purpose of just being the puppet masters and we just being their faithful, loyal subjects?
But Joseph, let me interject before you go to Milton. Remember, the thing about it now, a lot of people and a lot of Grenadians don't understand, not the only Grenadians, people on a whole don't understand. It's not about politics, it's about governance. When you're speaking about country, it's about governance, it's not about politics. And they have to separate the two. politicians change, they go, they make their time, they get their pension, some of them, and they are gone.
Say that part again. They get their pension.
I'm not going to, I'm just mentioning it. I'm not going to go into that nitty-gritty. But the whole thing about it is governance. And the governance level starts from the permanent secretaries. They have to guide whatever politician come, whatever political party come and go, the governance issues have to remain the same. The same goals we're talking about, changing, making that transformation rather than change, has to start there and continue from there. Otherwise, we're just going to see what we're experiencing now. Nothing really happening. People talking about growth, but come on, our economic student will tell you Grenada is not really experiencing real growth. That's debatable. The politician will tell you otherwise. But in terms of growth, when you speak about growth, you don't speak 5-6%. You speak 9-10. Guyana in 2021 experienced 42% growth. That's growth.
Right.
We have yet to touch even close such a threshold.
Mike, I'm hearing you saying something?
The issue also is how you measure that growth. Because anybody can juggle figures, and politicians and political parties are expert at that. When it comes to juggling those things, you have to be able to measure growth. I wrote a column in the height of the COVID pandemic, arguing that Caribbean governments have not looked at what a post-pandemic recovery should look like and how those economies could be transformed based on a number of issues that they face. We in the diaspora looked at what was happening in the Caribbean and we were literally petrified as to what will happen economically. The key tourism industry suffered, for want of a better word, an Obama word, a shellacking, and it is still recovering right now. But again, if you look at Caribbean economies, and no government, I can speak about Grenada, but other Caribbean governments, they have not diversified the economy. I hear this young man talk about diversification and that people should be held accountable. That is correct. But we've seen economies, again, operate in the same old, backward, archaic way that does not deliver for the people. And so you have the perpetuation of a cycle of, well, somebody comes in promising the best, community going to transform, and then they do the same old, same old.
Right.
So that's the issue.
Milton, we've heard the conversation regarding local government, and we seemingly agitating it that transformation cannot just be changing the leaders, the political party. The conversation of local government has been one, Milton, that we've been mulling around, we've been flirting with for quite a while, and seems to be going nowhere. Do you think that conversation once and for all must be brought into the fore so as to lead that transformation of which we speak?
Yes, I do think so. I do think, and one of the very pertinent issues is the issue of the good governance agenda. And when I talk about transformation, I'm talking about, for example, implementing the good governance agenda. We need to see, as a matter of urgency, a system where accountability is institutionalized, where transparency is institutionalized. But the good governance agenda is not only about transparency and good governance and accountability. The good governance agenda also speaks of the rule of law. How well are we obeying and adhering to the rule of law? Or just as we go, we make laws to suit or to fit our own desire? The good governance agenda also speaks of people's participation. What level of consultation do we have? Is it genuine or just saying things? So these are things that we need to not just talk about, but the transformation I'm talking about is where we take the initiative to apply and to implement these systems that guide and develop and build society. So I think it's important that we understand the need for good governance.
Right.
Whether it's in education, whether it's in the economy, good governance, accountability, transparency, the rule of law, and people's participation. How many people are involved in the process? Or just take what you get and cool it? We have to understand that there has to be a process where we have equal say in what is happening in this place. And I think that's what I really would like us to understand, that this is important in regards to how we go forward. Do we go forward with business as usual, or do we demand and ensure that we have accountability and so on and so forth? So I'm saying we need to do, it's not just having an election enough, it's building a society that can be sustainable in the future.
It's interesting that you say that, because very often we hear the argument, gentlemen, that we live in a democracy. And the argument holds, some argue, that in fact we do not live in a democracy, we live in a kakistocracy, where the decisions that are made that affects our lives is often made by the people that are least able to contribute to national development. And some have argued that that's the problem right there and then. So we go to the polls, one political party has a base, you swing it one way, you get them into power, but the people that's putting them in power, they are the least of the apostles that's able to make decisions, Gerard. And we just keep going through this revolving door.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave it here. There's something in the city council that I have to do right now.
You're holding the phone, we're not seeing you.
Next time, I'll be back again for longer and better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for your contribution. Okay, Mike, internal Mike, put everybody up on screen for me. Let me ask this question, and you agree or disagree. Colin Campbell, and I want to start with you, and I can almost assume what your response is going to be. Do we live in a democracy where the majority is supposed to, whatever happens, is supposed to be the will of the people, where the majority would rule? Or is it in a kakistocracy, where the least able to add to national development are the one who somehow they manage to wield the power, make the decision to get those that wants to get to the office, and nothing happens?
Okay, Joseph, you see, one of the things I realize that is happening in Grenada and even in the world is the illusion of democracy. So you give poor people the illusion that they are part of the political or economic process, and that's not the case. So yes, I do agree, this is not a democracy really. It's just an illusion of it.
So it means we have a lot of reform to do then. So this first past the post system that is supposed to be the engine that takes us forward, that's just a sham, Gerard?
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a sham, Joseph. However, I forgot to mention this. One of the major issues you would hear, whether it's on social media or on the ground, is that the system continues to fail Grenadians. The system continues, whether it's the education system, whatever system it is, the system continues to fail Grenadians. They cannot make it unless you are a certain strata in life, that you have some kind of financial assistance that you could get from somebody in your family, or whatever the case may be. You will fail. The whole issue, a lot of people have been highlighting, also because it's connected to the same system, is the lack of financial literacy, especially within schools. We are not, as Grenadians, as financially literate as other people maybe in the wider world. Financial literacy must be a must. It has to be.
Well, who takes responsibility for that? Who guides that agenda?
Well, I've heard talks that the education system would be reformed, but would it be changed or transformed? That's the question.
Milton, are we spinning top in mud? Milton, we're not hearing you.
You guys say. Yeah.
Are we spinning top in mud?
No. We should not be spinning top in mud, and we should not consciously spin top in mud. If we know we're spinning top in mud, let us not spin top in mud.
I tried that one.
Seek to get genuine content.
Oh, okay. Right.
Milton, go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying, if we know that's what is happening, let's not consciously do it. There is a better way, and there's another way. Let us stop doing business in a way in which it has always been done. If we genuinely want to get change, if you want to see things differently, well, let's not use the word change here. But if you want to see things differently, a different result, a different experience where the people are consciously being developed mentally, emotionally, economically, socially, politically, I think we need to take that path and do not allow ourselves to again continue to agree at how it was. We have seen the effects of it. We have seen it. Not that we have lived outside and we looking inside, we have lived it. And so we understand that it's important for change to come, and it starts with an individual mentality that says, I am not going to do things the way in which I used to do it before. I would not accept things like, when I see corruption, for example, I would not accept, when I see discrimination. So we need to have that mindset where we see each other as equal human beings, equal citizens. Yeah? And so we would want to apply that. Once we recognize it, let's apply.
But do you agree, gentlemen, that one of the things that makes us unique as Grenadians and Caribbean people, we are small, everybody knows each other, and there's always a fear that if I say something, it's going to agitate Jared, because I know Jared is not my family, but I know somebody who knows Jared, and that becomes our Achilles heel, that we tend not to be able to deal with the issues because of those interpersonal connections. Then there's a partisan politics that if I talk about it, if I raise an objection, maybe they will think, as they did in the revolution, they'll think I'm counter-revolutionary. If I talk about it now, they may then decide that I'm either brown or yellow. And the cycle continues. Colin?
Joseph, I think we need to remove emotions when it comes to politics as the electorate, okay? We're too emotional, and if our judgment is governed by emotions, then we're always going to fail. We're always going to make the wrong decision, right? Yes, we live in an environment when you speak truth to lies. People say truth to power, I say truth to lies. You're labeled a certain way. I do not want to be labeled an NDCite or NMPite because I'm outside of that system. I have sat back and I have looked at global politics and how it affects local politics here in Grenada. And I had that aha moment. You see, when you trick poor people into thinking that if they go and vote, that's all they need to do and then their lives are going to be better, we are always going to be spinning top in mud.
So we have been spinning top in mud, Gerard.
Of course.
Because isn't that what the system is designed to do? You fool fool them enough that they think come the 23rd that they, by the stroke of a magic wand, and when they wake up on the 24th, they realize, Milton, but my children's still hungry. I spent the last three weeks being adorned in a particular color, but I still can't pay my bills. My children are still hungry, and I'm going to be catching my royal ninin for the next 5.5 years. Milton?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't expect. You see, again, one of the transformative attitudinal change that we have to have is what you have just said, that we can't expect change the next day. we have to understand the process. And I talked about it a while ago. You have to involve, I mean, even before being elected, you have to involve the people who you are saying are the beneficiaries. I mean, as I said, we can't continue to spin top in mud.
But isn't the problem
one thing and practicing another thing is not what we want to accept.
But isn't the problem that many say, gentlemen, is that, and there was a value, that's why politicians and leaders, Gerard, they refuse to educate us unless we make that conscious decision to break away from the system. Because once you become educated, you start questioning the status quo. Why? But we've grown up in a society where they've taught us that to question is to be disrespectful, is to be anti. So if I question my pastor, we quote a scripture that says, touch not the Lord's anointed. If I question the finance minister, it's because I am anti.
Joseph, and the thing about it now, as a reporter, you get that all the time. You do a story, you might even say what they say, and you still say, and they will still tell you anti, whether it's for that party or for this party. But Grenadians have to remember, and I would always urge people, you have to remember that you are a Grenadian first. You are a citizen of Grenada. You're not a citizen of a political party. And the whole issue is, Joseph, like, while I was growing up, and I had to say this tonight, while I was growing up, I followed politics. I listened to my parents speak about the revolution and speak about all the issues. But our mainstay was following the news. Joseph, young people nowadays don't watch news. Whether it's on social media or on TV, they don't watch news.
Why so though?
That's a question because Joseph, the culture has changed. We have moved away from the different norms, the different things that would educate you, that would uplift you. People cannot pick out the seriousness of some of our stories. And sometimes we put on regional issues, we localize them, and we point them out. A case in point, I would have done a story, I think in February, from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Governor Timothy Antoine, who is a Grenadian, and they were highlighting in terms of how to get out of the pandemic or how to even diversify the economy, and they were highlighting that there is trillions of dollars available within the different banks and credit unions in the Caribbean that you could pull from to address issues such as climate change. So the whole issue of climate resilience, we're not supposed to be even looking outside for funding because the funding is available here. Mm-hmm. You know? But would people be able to pick out from that story? Some of them are not even listening.
They are not listening. They say if you want to hide anything, you want to, any secrets you want to keep, put it in a book, Colin.
Somebody made the comment that not even the young people or people listen to the news. No, I mean, I think we as people who have been involved in the media have to be honest with that. Are we fulfilling our role or function as media? Because the media is not only to inform, but to educate.
Right.
And you're talking about educating people. The media ought to be providing the necessary information. Don't forget, the media is supposed to be the fourth estate, equally important as the judiciary and the legislature, and of course the executive. So the media has to understand its role to educate, not just to inform and say what's happening here, what's happening there, but there ought to be series of programs to educate people on these things that we're talking about.
Let's talk. I mean, issue of issues. Let's talk about healthcare. While we're educated, let's talk about healthcare. We've had the conversation about health insurance. I often laugh when one of our leaders, they need medical attention. The first thing you hear is that they're on a plane going somewhere. So you hear X, Y, and Y, they have left the island to go for the annual medical. They may have some major operation. They go to a foreign territory. And you ask yourself the question, well, you don't trust what's here? You are the custodians of what's here, and you don't trust? Should that be a cue for us, Gerard? If our political leaders don't trust the local healthcare system, then maybe we need to find a piece of rock somewhere else to live and try not to get sick.
Joseph, as I intimated earlier on, I grew up listening to my parents, listening to different people.
We have.
And what they would have told you, prior to even the revolution in 1983, Grenada was first in health and first in education. So the late Sir Dwight Venner attended GBSS. People used to come to Grenada for schooling. That's the level that we were. Where have we really fallen? What would have happened? I may not have the answers, but somebody does. Is it the system? What is it? Or is it a variety of different things that are affecting, and as you have highlighted earlier, is it part of that whole political structure? Instead of we dealing with issues of governance, the petty politics and people trying to hold on to power are restricting us from growth, transformation. Is it that? People have to be able to ask themselves that going into this election cycle and the election cycles to come. You have to ask yourself, are you being restricted? You say the system is failing you, but what are you doing to really make the changes? And people have to realize too that the people that have the power, even though you're electing them, you have to hold them accountable. You don't just talk about it. You don't just talk about it, because people realize when the unions protested, they got what they wanted. If you don't speak up, and Grenadians now have a tendency, they are no longer as rebellious and as revolutionary as they were.
So we have short-term memory.
So 2 weeks.
2 weeks and we forget.
2 weeks.
And that's probably the good side of the bad side of us is probably the flip side. But 435-440-1252, that's the number on the inside if you want to be part of the contribution. Have we seen any advancements, gentlemen, in healthcare? Any at all? And if no, who do we blame for it? Milton. Before you get into that, we have a caller that is on the line. Good evening, caller.
I think the issue...
Hold for me, Milton. Milton, hold for me. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, caller.
Good night to everyone.
Good night.
Especially the young guys on the program is very intelligent and smart.
Thank you. You wanted to make a comment?
I want to say that this man that was speaking there, comment on the man that was speaking, I don't know your name or what.
Okay, well, let me make sure before, because there is Colin Campbell. Colin, please raise your hand.
He left.
Oh, okay, so that's Mike Roberts, Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Right. Mr. Roberts.
No, the man that left the program.
Mr. Roberts.
Right, from the diaspora away from.
Uh-huh.
I don't find this man should get this man to bring on him, because I don't understand what this man saying here.
So would you want to, with that being said, do you want to add something to the conversation?
Well, what I want to say is not living in Grenada. He don't know what's going on in Grenada. He's not living in Grenada. So what he's saying, to me, I don't find it make no sense. That is what I want to say.
Okay, well, we do appreciate your comments. Thank you, though. 43440-1252. I think one of the challenges, I said, when we get opportunities to be part of a change agenda, and we miss it all altogether. We have another caller
Transformation, Joseph.
Transformation.
Not change.
We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Indeed, citizen Cadore. Greetings and greetings to your brothers and sisters, brothers there and so on. Listen, man, very interesting conversation. But I'm disappointed, I must indeed say, from the so-called media in this here country. They have failed us just as the members of the flock have failed the Grenadian people, so as the media. They become partisanized, they become trucklers to the political parties, and instead of speaking the truth to the people, they lie and they manipulate the people. Has been doing that for too long. But I'm happy that most of you have recognized that the only way in this here country to bring about, and I want to use your own words, change to create transformation in other words, to morph the country from one state into another, there has to be a profound change. We have to move indeed from a kakistocracy to democracy. I like the use of that word, Mr. Cadore. People thought it was a joke word invented. It's a real word. And I'm happy that it's being used. Listen, takes us to understand, and I will end here and saying that the only way there will be change in this here country, brothers and sisters, pay attention to this. It will not take a day nor a week. It may take maximum 2 years, but it has to be a good leadership, a reconstitution of this country, because if we don't, nothing will change. They will change everything that nothing changes. They seek power to satisfy their narcissistic views, their interest in fame and being in the limelight and otherwise. That is all. They care nothing about the people and the advancement of the nation. Brothers and sisters, after this election, let us go for a constitution reform in this country through the people in a constituent assembly. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening, will you?
All the best to you. Leadership, the issue of leadership, gentlemen, it comes up. Leadership. It's a conversation. You know, when you went to school, you were taught the qualities of good leaders, great leaders, what they're supposed to be. If we look at our political landscape, we look at the last 30, 40 years, the leadership that we've had, leadership is supposed to take us forward, progressively forward. If you're arguing that we have not progressed, Milton, then have we had good leaders at all? Or if we've had, who, at what point did that reverse transformation take place that we find ourselves backpedaling and wondering where to from here? Milton.
I think we are the people. I think we have dropped the ball. We have not mind our own business. We have allowed things to just go unchecked. And several years afterward, come and cry. But we have dropped the ball as citizens of this dear country. Yeah. So we need to hold ourselves accountable, just as how we hold our leaders accountable. Mm-hmm. We need to ask the question that we need to find things about. We talk about healthcare. I mean, yeah. We need to have the kind of healthcare that we are all beneficiaries. And we have seen it. I mean, somebody raised the point that whenever anything has to do with health, there are people who just leave and go and not appreciating that our healthcare system is supposed to be designed to look after the healthcare needs of our people.
Well, it should be, if it's a system, then there should be planning and implementation being put into it. Would you agree? I'm saying if it is a system, then you would assume reasonably that there should be planning and execution being put into it. But that very often is left, there's a big question mark by it. But we have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Cadore. Good evening to you.
Hello, caller.
Hello, are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you better now. Go ahead, please.
All right, I will say good evening. You know, in Grenada, we compare our country with other countries only when things are worse off in Grenada compared to the other countries. But we don't compare other countries' healthcare with Grenada. If we compare the other countries in the Caribbean with the healthcare that we have in Grenada, we would not be making this complaints that we have.
We won't be doing what, sir?
We would not be complaining about the state of our healthcare if we compare it to the peers in the Caribbean. Because believe it or not, the health system in Grenada is head and shoulders above many other countries in the Caribbean. Let me say this, Mr. Cadore, and to your guests. Healthcare is not cheap. It's expensive. The big question is, would Grenadians be prepared to contribute towards better healthcare? Would they be willing to do it? You know, there's this process with national health insurance, right? It would require, if national health insurance have to work in Grenada, Grenadians would have to contribute towards it. No place in the world where national health insurance is done is free. in the United Kingdom, in the Netherlands, in the UK, United Kingdom, UK, same thing. Wherever would Grenadians be prepared to contribute? We have made serious strides in our healthcare in Grenada, and we seem to be blindsided and complain over stuff. I say to people, and I would belong to.
So let me ask you, sir.
Let me just finish here. Any Grenadian who pays a doctor for healthcare pays the doctor because he wants to pay a doctor. He can go into any health facility and see a public doctor for free. But he goes into the private doctor's office, the same doctor that is in the public health center goes into his office, and the Grenadian goes and pays the same doctor for attendance, and they complain about healthcare. So
that's a matter of choice. But are you suggesting, based on the argument that you're forwarding, whether or not, and that's for the experts to decide, because our healthcare system may or may not be at a particular level, that we should allow that to be the order of the day and not challenge it, that we take it to the next level, sir?
What I'm saying, Mr. Cadore, is that
no, I'm asking.
Somebody listening to us Grenadians speak about our healthcare system who think that it's dismal. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but I understand that. So I'm asking you, but is anything wrong with us agitating for us to take it to the next level?
There's a difference between agitated and complaining. I just give you an example.
Okay.
When a Canadian talks about healthcare, and
I will leave that there.
He decides to pay to see a private doctor and condemns the public system, the same doctor that's performing there. So I'm saying, let's be thankful for this. I have colleagues, I have friends overseas who say to me, look, you guys in Grenada, you're blessed, because if we go to see a doctor and we don't have the money, we stay there. In Jamaica, people die in the hospital because they don't have money to pay the doctor.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And while I understand what you're saying, sir, I'm looking at this beyond just today. I don't think it is fair enough to say, well, because compared to another territory, Grenada experienced X, Y, and Z, Jared, that we just leave it like this?
Joseph, remember I said, I never even compared to the next country, because my statement was comparing prior to 1983, we were first in health, first in education. Grenada versus Grenada, then to Grenada now.
Right.
So, of course, we have to demand that there should be some improvement within the last 40 or some years, and if it has not been done, then why? We have to question why, and we have to hold those relevant in authorities accountable for whether they have failed or they were incapable of doing it, if I may say so.
There is a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead.
You raised a question about the leaders. And my point to you of the leaders is concerned. Grenada had two leaders within the past century. One, Maurice Bishop, for the work he has done within 4 years. And then we have Judge Brizan, for the short time. Remember structural adjustment? The NMP keep Mitchell come and ride on that morning with Judge Brizan. He didn't want to do anything and get money from the youth thing. So we had two great leaders, Judge Brizan and Maurice Bishop. Do the research and come forward.
Thank you. 440-1252. Milton, am I demanding too much if yesterday my leaders gave me apple pie and I enjoyed the apple pie, but today we've moved from the 20th century into the 21st century, which requires greater stealth, efficiency, and professionalism? Is anything ever wrong with us as the citizenry saying to our leaders, thanks for yesterday, but we need to take this to the next level?
It can be wrong. It can be wrong, Joseph, because I want to remind us, we are the ones who pay their salaries. We are the employer in this case. We are their employers. That's why now they are going around every single minute of the day, bombarding us with the application. They want us to consider them above the other. Yeah? So we have to understand that we are here now reviewing application, as it were. And so if when we say to them, we give you a pass, and you are required to do this thing. I mean, I'm very serious here. I think we should hold and we should get to understand more about good governance, about governance, not government, governance. Yeah, and I think so. We need to hold them. I mean, and we should not feel guilty of asking for what we deserve. They have to tell us what are the policies, what have they done, and what will they do. So we have to hold them accountable. I mean, let's not pretend as though they should be doing what they want and we should not be saying anything. We have to speak out because we are important. And as media people, we have to share the information, the knowledge, so that people can understand and make informed decisions. So we are important.
We have a caller on the line, Milton. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Cadore. Good evening to you, okay? I'd just like to make some brief remarks as far as the health is concerned, the health situation in our country. Health is a very expensive commodity. We all know that. Yes, we come a long way, we still have a long way to go. But we cannot be bashing this authority or that authority, or future authorities to come. On another point, concerning leaders, we in Grenada right now, we are at a serious crossroads. And we cannot be playing bingo or lotto with our politics, be it NMP or NDC. This time in our history calls for serious and dedicated leaders. I'm not saying young persons are not capable or the older persons are not capable, but we need to complement both young and old. But at this time in our history, we need experience, somebody that can steer the ship, because I would want to be in a plane that I know that the captain have never fly before. That's my take on that.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my take on.
Okay, thank you, caller. 440-1252. We want to say thanks to those of you that is on social media. You can be part of the conversation. We have another caller that is on the line. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, how are you? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my take on the issue is that I think some of your speakers there made some statement earlier on. One said that our politics in Grenada is can't be fun, right, or something like that. But I would differ to that, because if you listen to the opposition, they talk about issues, they talk about what they want to do, while the incumbents talk about what they did. So the days of can't be fun, bread politics, I think it's gone.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's gone. I think I hear it more issues now.
Okay.
I've been following up the politics for a while. I think I hear more issues, especially from the other side. The thing about leadership, we have 65% of youth in this country. We've been yearning for leadership. And from the revolution to now, there is only one leader that will long to really see the quality of leader in him. So the others, it's unfair to judge the others. Grenada, I think Grenada is only about one political leader, but the others can't compare. It's like chalk and cheese. Thank you.
Well, it's probably like the same corned beef and crackers.
Joseph, just give me a 1 minute just to clarify. So, right, I just want to clarify just for the caller. Thank you for your contribution, but I think you took my statement out of context. Now, the question was, what is it that I'm getting on the ground? And I gave the opinions of the people who are outside of politics, outside of the party politics. I'm talking about objective people who are looking in. That's not my opinion. Okay? I just wanted to just let that be clear.
And even if it is your opinion, if you see that way, and I think that's probably often the challenge. If you see that way, and I get the point you're making, the caller is free to object. And we are free to hold to our position that if the people in the gang saying is corned beef and crackers politics, then we need to address the question, why do they think that way? But we have a caller on the line. But before we take the caller though, I contributed this post with something to me, and they were making reference to the fact that in the days when, Gerard, you talk about the days of the Cubans, when they were offering free healthcare services, and somebody's asserting that the very same Cubans are now here charging hefty sums. Times have changed. Our healthcare system demands more, and I say we hold our leaders, their feet accountable, better education, better healthcare system as we get into the next election cycle. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, good tonight.
Yes, caller.
I have some little observation.
I'm hearing you a bit low, sir.
Yeah, do you hear me now? Properly?
A little better, thanks.
Right. No, better?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Right. I just have a little observation from things in the past. And what I look at now is like in the early days, we have like the laws of the state, and they had everything in place that the state have the law and how it should be ruled and how it should be run. When a party comes in power, they form the government and they run the affairs of the state of the country. But right now, my observation is all these things have changed, and to me, it's like not the government, it's the party running the country. Because I give you one little example, what I look at from an early, the way the public works department used to handle things, how they run it by the law of the state. All government buildings and places used to be taken care of by the public works department, including the roads and all these things. But now, what I see is it's party running the countries. There's no like government running the country, because there's no one doing what the state needs to done in the state. So, when you want a job or you want certain things, it's like the party, you have to go to so many party office all over the place. That's where you go and check, and that's where you go again.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is that a fair enough assessment? I mean, I've watched what has happened to the election cycle. Places I never knew you could put concrete. I see that fella put a concrete and a drain next to me, and I was like, but are they serious? I mean, Jerry, is this what our politics, our country has been reduced to? That when it comes to the election cycle, our leaders can find the time to expand a sidewalk by 2 inches, concrete a little ravine that's been there for the last 30 years just to collect algae?
Joseph, all kinds of things is happening right now. I wouldn't even mention them. All kinds of things is happening right now. Joseph, I listened to some of the callers, and some spoke about healthcare is expensive, but as I would say again, as an economic student, I learned that education and health is the two most productive sectors. Once you are healthy and once you are educated, whether it's agriculture, tourism, all those industries are bolstered immediately because they have a rippling effect. So no matter how expensive it is, whether we have to pay the doctors and the money and the nurses, what they are due, those who especially work during COVID, those who have traveled, left Grenada because they're still on contract, they couldn't take a loan before government institutions do the recent thing with GDP, how much would have left? The brain drain that continues to happen. I mean, Joseph, why is it, and people would have that question, people have been asking that question, why is it only when election comes around that you get something from government? Why? What happens for the last 4 or 5 years? What would have been happening?
And then you get free toilet now?
Exactly. And then, Joseph, the whole issue about leadership and people talk about, oh, this is the politicians. No. It's because how the system has been, I would not say corrupted, but
if it is corrupt, then say it's corrupt.
It's not functioning at how it's supposed to be. So maybe it is corrupt.
Well, if it's broken, then
because
it needs to be fixed.
because as I said, it's the permanent secretaries that are supposed to be running the ministries. Whether a political party goes or comes, it's the people are still the same. But the whole thing about Joseph, Grenadians, especially within the public service, some of them are very hardworking. I would not bash them on that. Some of them are very hardworking. However, the productivity levels within public service are sometimes slow.
There's a lot to be desired.
Exactly. Here public servants living at 3. I mean, is what the people are saying, is what you hear on the streets.
And that is in fact a culture. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead, you're live.
Joe?
Yes, you are live. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. I find we jumping and going, we moving too fast from one subject to the next. But we know it's health. But let me tell you, as far as I'm concerned, I have passed through the hospital dealing with some prostate issue. And the only thing you get from the hospital, remember, we have good doctors, but the only thing we get from the government is the doctor service from the health center. And so when they're talking about doctors and healthcare, this is what we get. And everything else, apart from the attendance, when the doctor examines and send you to get tested and do, everything after that, young people, blood test.
No, while you're there, sir, I don't necessarily agree with that. Let me say this. While I agree,
you might not agree with me, but
hold on. I'm not just agreeing with you wantonly.
Okay.
While I agree that our healthcare system is in dire need of a real resuscitation, there's a lot of services that we get for free. And the caller made a very excellent point. I mean, that healthcare is expensive. Bro, you go to the hospital, you spend 2 weeks in the hospital, 80% of the medication that you get in there, it is free. So let's not bash for the sake of bashing. Let's be objective about it. And while I say we want to agitate for improvements, the reality is that it is costly and there's a lot of taxpayers' money that goes into it. So let's not say you get nothing free. Because I could show you, you're going there tonight, whatever medication you get in, 80% of it is free.
I didn't tell you I didn't get none free. I tell you all I get is free basically is the doctor attendant.
Well, your situation might be a unique one.
From the health center. All medical, the thing like, anything like X-ray, blood test, all them things, surgery, it's been paid for.
Yeah, but sir, let me ask you and I agree with you. How long was those fees introduced?
How long was those fees introduced?
For the greater part of our lives, those services were free.
Well, okay, look at it. Look at it this way. Let's look at it this way. Let me tell you something. When the time you're talking about that was free, me ain't talking about that. I'm talking about no.
Okay,
when no, things get more expensive than ever. No is when the poor people have to pay.
So we can't get anything free in this life. In all due respect to you, we can't expect that everything should be free. In all honesty,
I tell you, all what need money, the money that need to pay, the few dollars, the few cents.
Okay.
This is what we get free. And the money we need to get the exam and the examination and the X-ray and everything, yeah, the surgery. This is what we have paper and this is what we don't have.
Okay,
that one part. The other part about it. You talking about a man going to the hospital, a poor man, because as far as I concerned, the majority of the people in Grenada living under poverty, in poverty. Now when we go up there in the hospital, we had to walk up the hill. Imagine a man suffering with prostrate or whatever, but you had to walk up to the hospital. And then you would still have to walk back down. Yeah? And this for that hill up there for years. And it's been always said, even Paho, say the hospital not supposed to be up there. And for years, it's been up there. And it stay up there, and they're doing all kinds of things. They repair, and then they break it down, and they build over something else again. And the same thing going on. What the hospital doing up there, I could remember when NDC was there last, they had a spot in Mongi designated for the hospital. Yeah? And as soon as everything goes, they vote them out. And that just gone down the gutter.
Okay.
Yeah? So we have to look at that. And another thing again, when we're talking about healthcare starts from the environment. And the environment is dirty and stink all over the place. If you look at the side of the road, all where you pass, dead dogs stink all down. Pass on Mong Panasas anytime. Pass on white gun. And these things you have to look at. You see?
Okay, sir.
So don't come and take on nobody, and the post that is responsible for that is the government.
Thank you, sir.
The government, the people that we put it to run the country. And you are the understand that because you know that. Look at what happened. Eh?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your contribution. Thank you. You know, Milton, you made an excellent point earlier on, you know, about us taking responsibility. And would you agree, gentlemen, that therein lies one of the challenge to our advancement, that we never recognize our contribution to the process. We always ask ourselves, what can they? There is a shuttle that runs on the bus terminus. There's a shuttle. So they say you have to, and I'm not going to argue whether or not the hospital needs to be moved or not. That's a separate conversation. But I think we need to get to the point of thinking, what can I do? You have to walk? Anyway. we have a caller on the line?
Hello?
Hello, sir. Hello, caller.
I'm concerned about the government action on the roads, particularly the sidewalks in Grenville, where all the parking has been lost and everything. So that now they're only digging up the swamps all over the drains and all about. And we have no place to say, I live in Grenville, and I have no place to put my vehicle or to park my vehicle. It seems that the whole thing has become a Pecamel thing just for, I don't know if it's for election or what, but they need to improve what they're doing in the sidewalk project in Grenville.
Thank you, caller. Gentlemen, allow me to ask you the question. How do we change this? We hear in the election cycle, we've seen all of a sudden, things you have not seen for the last, that didn't, in my estimation, unless I missed it, I have not seen happen for the last 4.5 years. It is happening. You hear promises of getting toilets, different. Do we get the sense, though, that our politics is more about the hype, the excitement, the balancing, than it is about the issues really that are affecting us? Or is it we just intend to put the populace in a state of drunken stupor, that they just vote on a day and not necessarily address the issues that are affecting their livelihoods?
Joseph, here's how I would answer this question. A political party's approach to their political campaign is going to mirror what they think the electorate wants. And based on the pattern on the behavior of the electorate, politicians are going to respond to that.
So the politicians are at fault then for where we are in this...
Wait. No. Hold on. We as the electorate have to take responsibility now, because remember, they are a reflection of us. So if they see that they could bribe us in the last 2 minutes prior to an election and win our votes, and then neglect us for 4.5 years, then they're going to continue doing that. Remember, they are a reflection of us. So we need to want more from our politicians, and then they will have to change, they will have to transform to suit us. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm with you, comrade. I am with you.
Right.
This requires a paradigm shift, a new conversation in politics. We have a caller on the line. We lost a caller. Milton.
So Joe, the issue is here that this is an opportunity for us to examine the policy, whether that what they did in the past or what they promised that they will do. I think we have to take responsibility. It might be a tedious job, but examine the policy. For example, there should have been a policy in place many years now that deals with media, and we have that freedom of expression. Now, there's still continue to exist. Well, I don't know if I could say this. I don't know if I could say that. A media policy is what I'm saying. A media policy should have been in place long time ago. And of course, my friend Gerard, who is now the president of the Media Workers Association of Grenada, could think about that. A media policy. What guides us? What guides us? And I'm saying here, this is where I think we need to go. Examine what policy they have and see how we can implement the good governance agenda.
Whose responsibility is it, though? Whose responsibility is it to ensure the introduction of that policy? Who agitates for it?
People who are involved. The people who are involved. Hold on. The people who are involved in the profession needs to be guided by some principles and some policies. We know generally what the function of the media is, but in terms of guiding that process, in terms of giving that freedom of expression teeth, that's where the policy comes in.
What's the government's?
And these things have to be in place.
What is the government's role and responsibility in ensuring the introduction of that policy?
Well, like anything else, if they want to say, listen, in education, we're going in this direction, well, then that's the policy. In healthcare, we want to do that. But in case of the media policy, okay, I'm saying in case of the media policy, who has to do it? Of course, the professionals, the people who practice in that area, needs to ensure that that is in place so that we can be guided.
So maybe before we take the call, Milton, maybe one of the challenges that maybe that's why the government seems to pump a lot of their imps and their goons into it, so as to ensure that nothing happens, so that they can continue to manipulate the system. But we hold that thought right there. We hold that thought right there. We have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, and how are you?
Wonderful as always. Go ahead, please.
Thanks for your guest as well.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Joseph, I want to make a statement here. Now, from January to June, we are in June, okay? My children been suffering from malnutrition, whatever the sickness might be. And you want to come and give me a bowl of soup, nice piece soup with all the pigtails and little dumpling in it, in June. Huh? In June. And what you're telling me, you care about the people, you care about the children, you care about the youth. Tell me, I've been starved from since January to now, and because you bring me a bowl of pea soup today, what you feel, I shouldn't remember what's been taking place with me from January to June? Well, you tell me if I'm stupid and if Grenadians are stupid. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much, caller. Gentlemen, I think it goes back, Gerard, you made a point that we only remember for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So if that theory actually holds true, gentlemen, therein lies the problem. That if we give us a bowl of soup just before election, on election day we go into the booth remembering that Milton gave me a bowl of soup, Colette gave me a pencil, my belly full, I will take the pencil and I'll vote JC in.
But Joseph, I feel the difference in this election would be the undecided voters.
The undecided? The
undecided voters. For me, it will be undecided voters.
And it's interesting.
And then to answer also Milton on the media policy. A media policy was put together a couple of years ago in the days of George Grant and certain other senior members along with government and executives that followed have tried to get that policy enacted. However, it's right now in the government's hands. Also, a Freedom of Information Act that was put together. If you go on the government's website, it is there, but the media association by themselves cannot act or put in or enact a law. Policy is beyond an association once it's on the national level.
Yes. Thank you, caller. Thank you, Jared. We have a caller online. Hello, caller.
Hello, good night.
Good night to you, sir.
Yes, good night to your guest. I'm so happy to see that there are young people who have, I would say it in common language, have a lot of sense. Because sometimes it makes me feel that Grenadians have no political sense and they really don't understand, but it is now known. There's a lot of young people who understand what is happening. Because I hear some people who so much older than the young people who saying that young people cannot lead, making so much of funny statements about, what should happen and what shouldn't happen. And here you have some young people who have their head on and understand how the country should run. So that gives the rest of young people in the country hope that experience will come with age. Experience, I know a lot of old people that never grew up. They still remain the same way as I know them 20, 30 years ago. So experience will come with age. The other thing I want to talk about our healthcare, there are some people who defend the health system. But health and nutrition, they goes together. And if you look at our system as a small country, our health system isn't properly tied with nutrition. If we have to reduce on our costs, we must tie our health with nutrition. And what is happening in this country, if you get to realize, if our leaders don't trust our health system, because from my point of view, the fact that every time something happens to somebody who has money in Grenada, they have to travel for health care, and we have people who qualify, who've been to, the best institution to learn, something has to be wrong. Mm-hmm. Imagine, you go to the hospital and you spend hours, somebody's condemning people for leaving the hospital and good. I pick up a man on the street in Grenville. I didn't know him nowhere at all, but the man was seeking help. I brought that man to Maribor. I spent 6 hours with that old man, begging for them. The man said he's not going back home because how he's feeling, he knows if he go back home, he's going to die. So it means that he has to get somebody to look after him. He said he has his doctor, but the doctor not coming to office today. My God, could you imagine an old man who just had a cup of tea? I spent 6 hours pleading for the man to get some assistance. Right? Now, if you could move around, even if you cannot afford it, you may find some ways of getting to a private man for help. So some people have to understand. If the system was like, I remember during the revolution, we didn't have that problem. That you could have get your health care without all these kind of issues. However, that is of the past. But our young people, the politician has, as somebody said, had balanced us and create an environment for us to depend on them and to say nothing to the things happening. But we have to take a lot of blame for happening, my brother. Okay. Let me tell you, a lot of things are happening to us. We squeeze one another, we bring down one another. When we hear people that are afraid to talk, even if they know the truth. And when you full your pocket and you allow your brothers and sisters to suffer, it won't benefit you down the line because your family is going to suffer. We need to forget the party politics. And when we elect a government, we must all come together and say, this is right and this is wrong.
Okay, thank you, caller.
Until we reach to that level where we could just forget about the election gone and hold the people, okay, now you are the representative, you represent all of us.
Thank you. All the best. Somebody said to me that what we need, gentlemen, is a Robin Hood government where they'll take from the poor, from the rich, and give to the poor. Unfortunately, it's not that what happens. We have those who they plunder and they rape and they do that which they can use us. They seemingly use us as their sacrificial lambs, and we then left to the slaughter.
Sorry. Continue.
Go ahead. Get it out.
Right. I want to get it off my chest.
Get it off your chest, bro.
We strain a little bit, right?
Yeah.
As long as capitalism exists, we would never get the type of transformation that I'm talking about. In the way that capitalism is constructed, we will never get that type of transformation. I'll give it an example, right? So, remember, we're still working, to a large extent, we're still working with the colonial system, okay? In the way that it is structured. And one of the things that makes this system so powerful is that it is constructed in such a way that the people that it is excluding from, getting the Grenadian pie, it makes the system so complex that they don't understand how to deconstruct it. So let me just say that again. So the system is built in such a way that the people that it's excluding have no way to understand or deconstruct the system. That is what's happening now.
So you're saying that the system is all about, it is designed to control, to manipulate, to keep us in a constant state of stupor?
Yes, I'm of that view.
Milton? Milton, is that your 2 pence on it? That we're going through this revolving door?
No, I don't see it like that. I believe that with the responsibilities given to us as citizens, citizenship, being a citizen means something. It has benefits. It calls on citizens to be responsible in some ways, and we have to speak out. We have to speak out speaking out doesn't mean that you go and condemn, It means that you ask questions. And being in the profession that we are in, we ought to be able to ask questions.
What are the questions in your mind, Milton Coy, that the citizenry should be asking as they prepare to go to the polls? What are the questions? 2 questions.
Okay. All right. The question is, sorry. The question I think we should be asking, are we satisfied with the level of governance? I think there's not much time to ask many questions, but are we satisfied? Are we responsible enough to be satisfied with the way things are going in regards to governance? When we need information as far as media is concerned, is there a law that says we need to get the information, and it's not based on the whims and fancies of those who have the information? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We need to have that. So you're asking for my vote. I want to know, for example, as a citizen, not necessarily as a professional, but I want to know in both ways. Do you have the commitment, or do you give the commitment to ensure that I have the information that I need to practice? And one of them is to have access to information.
Outside of the issue of information that you seem to be laboring on, and I realize that's a passionate one, but that might just be an issue. What would you suggest to the general population? Because in terms of media workers, we represent a minuscule percentage. But what would you suggest that the general populace should be asking themselves as we get ready to go to the polls? What's the question should be foremost on our minds?
I think, let me take a first shot at that. The question I think we should be, the question I think we should be concerned about as electorate, is whether or not our future, there's hope. Is there guarantee for us, our children and our children to be secured? Yeah, the security of our children, security in education, security, employment. Is it really something that is looking out for our interests? Are we really sure that we can get the necessary things that we need going forward as a people? We might be able to get everything one time, but I'm just saying some level of assurance.
Okay. We take the final call and then we go around for you our final 2 pence. There's a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
And I'm extremely happy that I have this opportunity to come back here briefly, Mr. Cadore. I've heard all the statement made by the media personnel. I've been always critical of the media personnel in this here country because I think they're deficient in many ways. They lack journalistic capacities. They do not investigate. They do not recognize their role. One of them mentioned that in effect, as is known in other parts, that the media comes like the fourth estate. In other words, the fourth arm of the common three-pronged state. But it's not that they're formal. They're informal and within society, but they ought to serve as a link between the people and the government. They are the ones who are supposed to go into the communities, investigate, refer to history, consult, relate, correlate, and put it out there as the truth. But what do they do instead? They truckle to the politicians. Take a look at this. All the presidents of the Grenada Media Workers Association end up in government information service. Am I telling a lie? They lack independence. They lack capacity. They hide things. Look, I'll end by telling you this, and I have to. I identified that the Constitution of this country says one thing relative, and months have been calling on GBN to facilitate an interview that I can make the observation and show the electoral authority how the thing can be done. I refer to the secrecy of the ballot of the visually impaired. And GBN never responded. Why? Because they're partisanized. MTV is the only one who responded. And recently another organization responded when it came to the air. But hear this. The head of the organization refused to air the interview, a video.
The head of which organization, sir?
It's called Carib Update somebody.
Oh.
His name is Mark, one Hamlet Mark.
But then you have to also agree,
listen,
my
let
dear
me just
sir,
end my point.
But if you do that, but you have to also agree that at the end of the day that the media house or entity, they reserve the right to air or not to air any material.
They do not reserve the right. See, you're not serving the journalistic purpose if you conspicuously hiding matters from the people. I'm talking here about a national matter.
Well, sir, I would agree to disagree with you, but I think ultimately that they do reserve their rights ultimately.
No, they do not, because we are living in a country where we have freedom of speech. If there are vulgar components, you remove it as the case might be. But you can't just decide not to air it because it doesn't satisfy your ear. This is abuse. And so the media has to recognize, and I implore them, the media as an organization, to do a couple of things. One, study the English language properly because your principal tool, they're too deficient in that. The second thing, study journalism, particularly a bit of investigative journalism, so that the people of Grenada can understand what comes from the bowels of the people, put it to the people. This is what we have to do. We have to be honest. We have to be trustworthy. We lack these features and these characteristics.
Okay.
That is why our country is failing as it is. But thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, while I call on Mr. Mark to air.
Thank you, sir. You will take up your beef with Mr. Mark, my dear sir, with Mr. Mark. And while I agree with many components of what you said, I think ultimately we have to appreciate within any media organization, not just in Grenada, they reserve the rights, their editors, the editors, their bosses that reserve the right to make that final decision, to air or not to air, to write or not to write, to disclose or not to disclose. I will leave that there. Gentlemen, I don't want us to get into there's just so much that we can. But I need to get your final 2 pence from from you gentlemen before we wrap. Where to from here? We've discussed, we've agitated a number of issues. I think we've all agreed that, Colin, starting with you, it requires, there is a need for a paradigm shift, a change of thought, a change in action, a change of momentum.
Yeah, I agree that our people, we need to transform ourselves, because if we were to depend on the system to transform us, then we'll be left, stagnant. Now, there's a lot of things that I would have liked to say, but this show does not provide enough time to flesh out the problem. Remember, I'm saying that we deal with symptoms of an issue and not the disease in itself, right? And we deal with the symptoms in isolation of each other. So we deal with healthcare separate from the economic situation. We deal with the, tourism in isolation of agriculture. You see the point that I'm making? So we as a people, in order for us to be able to get what we want out of politics, we first need to understand how the system works. All right?
Fair enough.
Just very briefly, say that again, Joseph?
No, I was just saying, I was just agreeing with you.
Tell me, what did you disagree with?
No, I was saying I agree with you on the points that you just made.
Yes, yeah. So just very, very briefly, right? Just to make people understand how the system works. So say, for instance, we have tourism. Why is it that there's so much focus on tourism? We don't ask the question, where does the political financing comes from? It comes from tourism, from investors. Now, if investors put in money into political campaigns, expect a return on their investment. That's just the rich play by different rules. Poor people, because we don't understand how the system works, we are like this stepchild. You treat us, not a stepchild, but maybe, yeah, Joseph, like you've been treated like a stepchild.
Well, look at Colin trying to put me in Canterbury Crossway. I ain't got no stepchild. Anyway, I get your point covered.
You understand the point. So I will leave it there. For now, I will leave it there. But we need to understand the system in order for us to be empowered, to be independent of it.
Or maybe I need to find out, do I have stepchildren I don't know? Joseph. Maybe that's a revelation.
Don't focus on the stepchildren.
He must have done some investigation. Milton, your final 2 pence covered.
Yeah, I will continue to implore on all of us, really, as citizens first, that we need to be responsible. We need to take responsibility for our action, for our future, for what is going to be happening to us. And let us not throw our hands in the air and say, well, listen, they're doing us what they want. Let us have the balls enough to stand up against all those things that are not right when it comes to the Constitution, when it comes to our way of life. So I'm saying we need to be responsible enough to take that action and say, listen, I said it at the beginning, enough is enough. How long can we continue to be denied, for example? Yeah? So I'm just saying, critically important as we go into this election, the good governance agenda, transparency, accountability. Can we hold our elected officials accountable? And are they transparent enough so that they can tell us what they're doing and we can question them? Because in the good governance agenda is also the rule of law. And are they prepared to uphold the rule of law?
Are they prepared to uphold the rule of law? Thank you. And
finally, people's participation. How much involved are the people in the decisions to even put a drain, for example? How much involved? And we need to bring ourselves to that place where we can deal with those things in those manners, honestly, truthfully, and positively.
Thank you, Milton Coy. Gerard, Joseph, your final halfpenny or your 2 pence or your dollar?
Joseph, I think we need to continue agitating for such issues. So I think a continuation even after election watch, as a lot of the people are saying, to educate the people, to continue to educate the people, we as media, so we need more programs like this to really highlight on the issues. There's beyond the headlines, but there's never enough programs to really educate the people as what is going on. So I would agitate for various media houses to encourage such interactions, especially with media practitioners, like what is going on here. And we the people need to organize and make that transformational change for ourselves. We need to organize, come together, forget about the partisan politics, the politics in general, because first and foremost, running a country is about governance, not politics. I would always say that it is about governance. It's not about one party doing everything else. We elected them to serve, and if we realize they're not doing what they have to do, the people has to, as Milton highlighted, we have to be responsible. We have to be responsible to keep the government responsible for their actions, and direct the countries in where we the people deem it fit and beneficial for us. And on the whole matter of, I will address the last caller in terms of media, photo state, and the whole process of freedom of speech. Yes, freedom of speech, however, there has to be supporting laws, like what Kai highlighted again, the Freedom of Information Act and other protective laws for the media. Otherwise, there are certain stories, according to the information as we have it, it cannot run as is. Sometimes we cannot demand information because there isn't a Freedom of Information Act, and that level of investigation that people might want, they might not get because there are limitations and people don't realize that. And also limitations with resources, and people saying, the caller highlighted about the English language. A lot of people don't understand the dynamics of media in Grenada especially. And I would not go into the issues because that is
a whole different.
different.
That's a Pandora's box all by itself. But as we get ready to wrap, I want to say thanks to you, my media partners, Jared Joseph, Milton Coy, Colin Campbell, and thanks to Mr. Mike Roberts, who joined us earlier. My people, Grenada, there's a lot to be discussed as you get towards the polls. There's a lot that you need to agitate, ask yourself the questions. Why do I need to do this? What's the importance and the symbolism of this action and activity that I engage in? Remember, you're about to make a decision that puts it into focus. Who takes the reign of power, of governance for the country for the next 5 years? Remember, in other entities, other democracies, they were allowed for the people for impeachment and those are the processes. In our case, we have to wait another 5 years. I need you to think with your inner soul. Think with your inner soul. Ask yourself the question. They're coming to you for a job. This is an interview segment. You need to question them as to why they believe they are the best one for the job. Do they get the job because they come with a pretty suit? Do you get a job because you go with a pretty smile to the boss? No. It's about you being able to deliver. We are the masters. They are the servants. Keep that in mind as you get into the booth on the 23rd. On behalf of the entire kit and caboose, the entire team here at the GBN, I'm Joseph Cadore saying thanks for being part of this conversation right here on Election Watch. And continue to ask yourself, it's not what your country can do for you, but it's what you can do for your country. Good night. God bless.